So I graded your checkpoint on your interview project. I want to be really clear that I graded that for completion. If you had the stuff that I was looking for, then it was okay. I'm not in any way saying that it's in the correct format. So be really careful with that. Okay, don't confuse that feedback. So I will say that first of all, I was underwhelmed by what I saw, having given that it's now a week. The day you turned that in was a week and a half away from when the due date was, but I've given you about a month to do it. So 1, you guys are slackers. 2, okay, you need to make sure that you look at some of the things that you're doing and make sure you tweak them. So I'm just going to go through some of the things I saw. I've graded a couple of the projects that have turned them in early, and I want to go through like what you need to make sure you pay attention to. All this stuff is in the notes on the video that I talked about in the rubric, but obviously some of you are not reading it that thoroughly, so I don't want you to get points taken away for silly stuff. When it comes to the actual interview portion, the Q&A part, MLA says this has to be double-spaced, and it needs a heading. Don't lose points on silly stuff like that, and page numbers. So I told you had the option of stating the question and then their answer, the question and then their answer, the question and then their answer, or writing it as one fluid passage. I don't care which of those formats you put it in, but both must be double-spaced. And both of them should have answers that are complete sentences. I don't want nope or yep or yes or no. You need to put some thought into these, so they should be complete sentences, okay? And then your responses should be thoughtful responses, not like yes or no answers. So take the time to actually think about what it's asking you and reflect upon it, okay? When I asked what do you learn about your budget, I don't want to know just one little statement that says college is expensive, okay? Hopefully you learned that's probably true. But hopefully you learned a lot more than that. Hopefully having a conversation with your parents, you now know the expectations. Obviously, you need to know the individual expenses, that kind of stuff. So I would say that's some feedback on the question and answer portion. And don't skip any question and answers. That would be silly. Then comes the 8-semester track, or the plan of study, whatever you want to call this. This requires nothing but research and screenshots. But what you need to make sure is that you have these separated out. This is not a list of all the classes that a major requires. Separated by semester. So this should say semester 1 or year 1, semester 1, year 1, semester 2, year 2, semester 1, that kind of thing. You don't need to enter anything in where it says elective or anything like that. That's obviously just for you to get a heads up of what kind of classes you're going to take. And then take the time to actually look at those classes, because they might be classes that you don't want to take. And if that's the case, then maybe you need to readjust your major, okay? This should also be from the university that you select. So if you do your project and you say that your top choice would be UCF, then that 8-semester track better come from UCF. If you say your major is going to be in biology, that 8-semester track needs to be biology. Then comes the course description. Okay, this is based on the math class you interviewed about. Which means it should come from the university that your person attended or is attending, and it should match the class. So if you say, I'm going to focus on college algebra, but you give me the description for calculus, that's wrong. It's got to match the one that they talk about from the university that they talk about, okay? Some people are giving me like an overall description of the major. That's not the same thing. So you want the course description of the specific math class you interviewed them about. Okay, then comes your budget. Make sure your fees are accurate. If you say you're going to the University of Florida, you better research how much the University of Florida costs. If you say you're going to NYU and you put it costs $6,000, that is wrong, my friend. Okay, you better look it up and find some research, because everything that you can look up, I can look up too. Right? So if you say you're going to UCLA and it's going to cost you $3,000, I'm going to go to UCLA's website. I'm going to find out of state because that's what you would be, tuition, and it's not going to be $3,000. You don't want to get docked on stuff like that. Remember that this is an annual budget. So it's the cost for the total year. If you want to do just 2 semesters like fall and spring, that's fine. Realize that those would be 9-month, okay, cost when you're dealing with rent and all that good stuff. If you're going to do a full year, you would include a summer term. That would be a 3rd term that you need to consider. You need to include things like fees for books. You need to include things like vehicle expenses or transportation. You need to include things like food, obviously. Hopefully you're going to eat when you go to college. You need to include things like entertainment, all of those things. And then your income, if it's going to be Bright Futures and prepaid, because your parents say that they were amazing and signed you up for prepaid, and you're probably going to get Bright Futures, those costs need to be accurate. So you need to go to the prepaid website. You need to go to the Bright Futures website and see what it actually covers at the university that you're going to go to, whether it's in-state or out-of-state. And this needs to be typed. Okay? It should be clear. It should be easy to read. Obviously, your income needs to be equal to or greater than your expenses. If it means that you're going to have to get financial aid, then feel free to add that too. Okay, then comes your works cited. If I can work cited. I don't want this to be screenshot from Pages or Notability or wherever you're doing it with everything underlined that looks like it's being spell checked. Okay? Whatever it is that you're creating, wherever it is that you're creating that document, if it's in Pages or if it's in Notability, wherever it is that you're creating that, export it as a PDF and then add it to the other components so that it is all one big PDF, but I don't want to see a bunch of red lines underneath for the things that look like they're spelled wrong. Also make sure you include your interviewee. I said it a bunch of times, but I've already gotten 2 projects that didn't include it. They are a source. So if they are going to a different university than you plan to go from, then you've got the website from their university because that's where you're going to get your course description. You've got them as a source. You've got the website from where you're going to go to because that's where you're going to get your 8-semester track. Wherever you're getting your budget or your fees from should be a source. If you've looked at Bright Futures or prepaid, all of those are sources that you need to include. So even if you choose the same university as them, you still have the page from the 8-semester track, the page from the fees at that university, the page from the course description at that university. That's 3 sources plus them. That's 4 sources. So you need to be really careful in what you're citing, okay? Give credit where credit is due. And then make sure that it is in the order that it's supposed to be in. Questions? Okay, so this is due on Monday, and some of you have a lot of work to do. My advice is to make sure, especially maybe tomorrow after your test, since you don't have homework after your test, you take the time to work on this. I was actually going to let you work on it solely in class on Friday, but the crap I got from last week ruined that. Because all you had to do was screenshot like 4 little bitty things, and I still got things that were incomplete. So you'll get time to work on it, but not the full class period. Everybody's good on project? Okay, so 55 and 57 are classifying the graph, right? So if you look at A, which is the x squared, and C...
So I mean like graphing, like trying to do the rotation. Okay.
So this won't work with rotation because there's no xy.
Can you do a problem like that?
So 59 or 61? You pick. 61. Okay, so this is your rotation, right? It says to rotate the axis to eliminate the xy, then write the equation in standard form, sketch the graph of the resulting equation, and show both sets of axes, which means the original and the slanted one. All right, so for 61, A is 5, B is -2, and C is 5. So the cotangent of 2 theta would be A minus C over B 0 over negative 2, which is 0, which means the tangent of 2 theta would be the reciprocal of 0, which is undefined. And tangent's undefined at pi over 2. So 2 theta equals pi over 2. And divide both sides by 2, multiply by a half here, and that's theta equals pi over 4. So that tells me two things. One is at the end, when I rotate my axis, it's going to run through pi over 4 like this. So that's going to be my rotated axis. And I also, from pi over 4, need to know that the coordinate point is root 2 over 2 and root 2 over 2. Because when I go to find x, which is x prime cosine pi over 4, minus y prime sine pi over 4, and y is x prime sine pi over 4, plus y prime cosine pi over 4. So I know they're both root 2 over 2. This becomes root 2 x prime minus root 2 y prime all over 2. And this becomes root 2 x prime plus root 2 y prime all over 2. So first checkpoint is your theta. Second is x and y. Then from there, you've got to plug it into your initial equation. So 5x squared root 2x. I'm going to leave off the primes but bring them back at the end. Minus 2x y plus 5y squared. And then I'm going to bump the 12 to the other side. It equals 12 or minus 12, so I'm going to bump it to the other side, making it positive. Then I'm going to go through and expand each of these. When it's squared, remember you can use the shortcut. So this is square the first term. The square of the square root of 2 is 2. Square root of x is x squared. Square the last term, which would also be 2, and now it's y squared, and it's a positive because it's negative times a negative. And then double the product of those. So root 2 times root 2 is 2. It's negative, so it'd be negative 2xy, but then I double it, so it'd be negative 4xy over 2 squared, which is 4. Then I go to the next one, minus 2. This time, they're not the same, nor are they, they are the same terms, but one's a plus and one's a minus. So I can use the difference of two terms where I square the first and square the second, put a minus between them. So this would be 2x squared and 2y squared minus in between over 4, because it's 2 times 2. That only happens because these are the exact same terms and one's a plus and one's a minus. And then I go to the 5 plus 5. And I square the first term, so 2x squared. And I square the last term, 2y squared. Double the product, so 2xy times 2 is 4xy over 4 equals 12. So you kind of have choices here because the individual fractions can be simplified. They're all divisible by 2 in each term, but you're still going to have a denominator. My advice is just get rid of the denominators. Since all the denominators are 4, I can multiply everything by 4. It gets rid of this, it gets rid of this, it gets rid of this, but then don't forget to multiply that 12 by 4, making it 48. Then I'm going to distribute the number on the front of each of these individual terms. So this is 10x squared minus 20xy plus 10y squared. Go to the next one. Minus 4x squared plus 4y squared. Go to the next one. Plus 10x squared plus 20xy plus 10y squared equals 48. Now I want to go through and combine my like terms, but I'm first going to do that with my x, y coordinates because if those don't cancel out, I know I did something wrong. Positive 20 and negative 20 do cancel out, so I know at least that part's right. Then I want to group together the x's, or the x squareds. So I get 10 minus 4, that's 6, plus 10, that's 16x squared. And then I want to group together the y squared, 10 plus 4, that's 14, plus 10, that's 24. Divide everything by 48. And I get, I'm going to bring back my primes, so x squared, or x prime squared, over 3 plus y prime squared over 2 equals 1. So here's my equation in standard form. What kind of conic is that? An ellipse? What's my, is it horizontal or vertical? Horizontal, because the larger one is underneath the x, right? A squared is 3, a is root 3, which we're going to approximate to be like 1.5. Actually, it might even be bigger, 1.7, but it doesn't matter because I'm not going to get that accurate. And then b squared is 2, making b square root 2, which is a little bit closer to like 1.2. But again, approximations. And my center is 0, 0. So then I would go to my graph that I already shifted my axis or rotated my axis. This was pi over 4. I'm going to plot my center, which is 0, 0. I'm going to go right and left 1.7 and up and down 1.2. And I'm going to make my ellipse. Questions? Any other question on the review? All right, so obviously in addition to this review, I also posted, there's a Canvas practice quiz. It's multiple choice, so it will tell you if it's right or wrong if you want to do it. It's totally optional. You need to make sure that you're ready tomorrow, however you need to be ready, whether it's go back through your quiz or go back through this review or do the practice one on Canvas if you've already done this. Just make sure that you're ready for it. Make sure you review all your standard form equations on all that good stuff.